We'll get to those stories in a bit, but first, a story that reveals just how wild the live music industry is these days and what sort of business trends are behind it. Let's start with this. If you know a Swiftie, give them some extra love today. Ticketmaster announced Friday's public sale has been canceled for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour due to extraordinarily high demands and insufficient inventory. Ouch! Fans did have a chance to get their hands on them earlier this week. If you had a pre-sale code, you entered the Great War on Tuesday at 10 a.m., and it was chaos, to say the least.
For about 45 minutes, I would say. I had like maybe this much progress in my queue, and all of a sudden it just bumped me to the seat selection, where you could actually buy them.
It said no tickets were available, which I knew wasn't the case because a lot were available prior to me securing them. And it ended up saying that I had to use the device in which I registered for the pre-sale with. So I had to use the app on my phone.
I got on the waiting line at 10 a.m. for pre-sale and was not let to get tickets until 2 p.m. So it took me a lot of hours of just being on my computer and waiting.
People were out here bringing back the MySpace days, pulling up the page code on Ticketmaster to reveal what number they actually were in the queue. Yeah, it was a rough wait for a lot of people. Ticketmaster was so overloaded on Tuesday, it had to postpone the Capital One pre-sale to Wednesday. And now, after that sale, there's no more left for the general public. But how is that possible? Taylor will be performing a total of 52 concerts in the US starting March 17th. Bookies.com estimates an average of about 54,000 tickets per show, which equals out to just over 2.8 million tickets sold. But the thing is, a 2018 report found Ticketmaster holds back as many as 90% of the tickets for the secondary market, meaning credit card companies, promoters, radio stations, or artists' fan clubs. So the pre-sale is kind of becoming the main sale. Our own pop culture correspondent, Casey Mendoza, tried to get tickets yesterday, but got sweet nothing instead. She spoke to some experts about the cost of going to a concert nowadays.
It's been 5 long years since Taylor Swift has been on tour, and with over 50 concert dates next year, Eras is set to be the biggest jewel of the musician's career. Fans, or Swifties, are in a frenzy and haze for tickets, but most are being left ghosted in queues.
Taylor Swift is going to pack, because Taylor Swift's very popular with the tween crowd, so they have to bring parents. So it's not just one ticket, it's like multiple tickets for one person to go.
After less than a day of pre-sales for tickets, which were only available to a select number of fans, Ticketmaster announced it was struggling to keep up with historically unprecedented demand, with millions showing up. By the next day, the company's pre-sale inventory was completely sold out, and quote-unquote scalpers were reselling tickets on platforms like StubHub for triple the original price, with some listed for as high as $30,000 to $45,000.
Scalping is not illegal at the federal level, and states regulate it in many different ways. The consumers will definitely become more critical, especially if they can't get the tickets and then they see them on StubHub, and instead of $100, it's now $500 on StubHub, and you can see who's selling it, and somebody might be selling it like 10 packages of 4, and you're like, well, how did they get 10 packages of 4?
Many online scalpers use bots to buy large batches of tickets, and while states like Tennessee have passed anti-bot laws to protect consumers, the law has proven difficult to enforce. Beyond the issue with bots, lawmakers like Tennessee's Attorney General are taking note of the issues surrounding Eras and questioning if the problem is Ticketmaster failing to give consumers fair opportunities to buy tickets. Others are also questioning if the platform is monopolizing the market.
The argument is there's too much control by one company over a substantial number of venues and concert shows. And of course, if there's 2 arenas in one city and one is owned by Live Nation, odds are the concert promotion will be going to the one owned by Live Nation, and they're making money up and down the chain.
The frustration over tickets will continue as Ticketmaster canceled its general public sale for Eras. Previously, the online betting platform Bookies.com said fans had a 1 in 50 shot of getting tickets, and now that's even less likely. The lucky concert goers may still face some more higher costs down the road, as the hotels near concert venues are already hiking up prices as much as $1,000 a night. Eras will be Swift's 6th tour, which have already grossed the music mastermind more than $935 million in ticket sales. Casey Mendoza, Newsy.
As Casey mentioned, the resale value of some of those tickets is the same cost as a nice used car or a semester of college, which is kind of ridiculous. And while I know T-Swift really has a solid fan base, this isn't just happening with her concert tickets. In fact, we saw ticket prices spiral out of control 2 other times just this year with Bruce Springsteen and Harry Styles. Not to sound like my grandparents, but it wasn't always like this. Sorry. Hard to believe now, but for a long time, people actually had to physically line up outside the ticket box office for a first come, first served basis the day the tickets went on sale. So what's changed? The answer, a lot. For starters, the internet has changed ticketing and how we purchase those tickets. To help us understand just how competitive it can be when it comes to buying tickets online, we have Patrick Spring, the vice president for Qit, a virtual waiting room that vendors, including Ticketmaster, use when it comes to selling their tickets. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. A very timely presence, I might add.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
Let's dive right into it. Can you first just explain how ticket bots work?
Of course. Yeah, so ticket bots at their most kind of simple form, it's just a program that's running a very specific task, right? So in the sense of like a ticket bot, it's just, I want to go in and I want to purchase a ticket. And they've been getting increasingly more and more sophisticated over time. So if you kind of look at their most kind of basic version, it's just about volume and speed, right? So how many and how quickly can I get as many programs to run and purchase tickets as quickly as possible? But of course, over time, that gets easier to block, easier to detect. So companies try and prevent that from happening, and they get more sophisticated. So you start to see things that run things like denial of inventory. So they'll be going in and just locking inventory on ticket sales to make it look like all the tickets are sold out on a show, even when they're not actually purchased yet. And then they'll try and list them almost instantly in secondary markets and then try and resell them before they even purchase them.
This can kind of bring us into Qit. How exactly does your technology help cut down on bots?
We sell a service called a virtual waiting room, but you can think of us basically as a digital holding space. So the main reason, one of the main reasons you would put our service in place is to protect your infrastructure, but also one of the advantages of doing that is that when you put people into that holding space, we have the ability to kind of do what would essentially be like anomaly or pattern detection, right? To see what people are in that holding space that shouldn't be. So we are kind of a layer that can be put into that system that can start weeding some of those malicious actors out in real time. And we are, one of many things that need to be put in place for that to be successful.
There have been some attempts to crack down on bots from Congress to better crack down on bots, but it's still happening. In your opinion, is there any way to completely stop them, completely stop the sort of digital unfairness that we've been talking about? Is there any way to kind of crack down on this?
I don't think that it's so much about stop. I think the answer is never going to be stop. I think the answer is make it cost more than they're able to kind of profit from. Everything is, sneaker drops, ticket sales, et cetera. Everything is somewhat individually approachable. It depends on what the scale of profit to be made out of that is. So the larger the event, the larger the demand, the larger value there is there. And then the more measures you need to put in place to kind of try and prevent those things from happening. But I mean, realistically, it's almost impossible to say like I can 100% stop this from happening. It's about making it not worth it for you.
Are there any tips to really kind of maybe not beating the system, but being in a good position to take advantage of these waiting rooms, these virtual waiting rooms, and actually get the thing that you're wanting? Are there any tips there?
In terms of increasing your chances, I think what everyone should be doing is that loyalty programs are the place that you start. Like all of these companies, all of these artists, they're invested in the people that are their fans or their hardcore like kind of followers to get the products, to get to the events that they want. So being kind of in that known user space, like they know who you are, you have a history with them, it increases your likelihood. So that's an obvious one. The other thing I always tell people to do is, especially when they see things that are kind of are happening incorrectly, it's like voice that. Like social media is great for that. I think artists have been great about kind of pushing that side of things as well, in terms of saying that it's important that their fans show up at their shows and that they don't have to pay 10x what they should have for a ticket. But it is about putting pressure into that space to say this is important to us. We want to make sure that we have that fair access, and kind of holding people accountable for putting the mechanisms in place to do that.
Patrick Spring, the vice president for Qit, a virtual waiting room that vendors, including Ticketmaster, use when it comes to selling their tickets. Patrick, thank you so much for dropping gems on us, man.
Well, thanks for having me, Christian.
So we know bots are part of the problem, but many, including lawmakers, blame sky-high ticket prices on the 2009 merger of Live Nation and Ticketmaster, calling their business a monopoly. Hannah, who you heard from a little earlier in the segment, says she thinks one of the reasons she was able to score tickets was because her venue was one of the few not being sold on Ticketmaster.
We do think that we were extra lucky because we're attending the show in Glendale, Arizona, and their stadium doesn't use Ticketmaster. They sell their tickets through SeatGeek, I believe it's called. And so we are like flabbergasted at how we got the tickets, honestly.
But other Swift fans weren't so lucky, and I'm not saying it's because they have bad karma. See, Live Nation, Ticketmaster's parent company, owns concert venues, promotes tours, and sells tickets. Many argue it leaves little room for competition, which means fans are left with virtually no alternative other than to pay what Ticketmaster is asking for. According to More Perfect Union, Ticketmaster's fees now cost as much as 78% of a ticket. President Biden did say he's coming for those hidden fees.
The Federal Trade Commission started work on a rule to crack down on unfair and deceptive fees across all industries. Fees that were never disclosed. And there was no way to avoid the fee, like processing fees for concert tickets.
Critics of the Live Nation Ticketmaster merger say it's a good start, but there might be a way bigger overhaul needed to address these issues within the live event industry.